Yeah. Hometown. Yeah, yo, we kicking it live. Vince and Stevie D, OWSports podcast is the place to be. Bills Mafia, repping the red, white, and blue, no doubt. With Josh Allen, just stand up and shout. Gang Green, coming with that New York flair. Jets in the mix, you know they taking it there. The rivalry is fierce, but they keep it 100. Legends in the making, pressure never stunted. From MetLife to Highmark, bright lights when the night's dark. Touchdown, dream, steel beams, leave a big spark. Bills and Jets, we clash on the field, but on this podcast, we keep it sealed. Respect for the game, we all in the zone. Vince and Stevie D, we holding our own. So tune in tight, don't miss a beat. OW Sports, where the real ones meet. Sit back.
It's OW Sports, the fastest growing podcast about the Buffalo Bills and New York Jets. You get the best takes, the most engaging interviews, and they are always keeping it real. So sit back, relax, and get ready to talk some NFL. Now here's your hosts, Vince and Stevie D.
And welcome back to another edition of Official Word Sports. As you can tell, I am riding solo today. My co-host Stevie D is caught up with another engagement, more important engagement. I guess what's more important than talking football, but a more important engagement. And so, unfortunately, you are stuck here with me, and that means it is all Bills talk 24/7. We will do my man Stevie D right by talking a little bit about the Jets. What I want to get into, though, is obviously one of the biggest stories that are going around right now, and that is, hey, Rob, go Bills. One of the biggest stories that has been going on really since draft day, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Shedeur Sanders, talking about the Cleveland Browns, and just an utter dysfunction that's going up in Cleveland. And we knew this from the beginning, right? Shedeur knew this. His family knew this. The league knew this. Cleveland is just it's a bottomless pit. Right, it's where quarterbacks go to die, and quarterbacks want to get out of it. Look at what happened with Baker Mayfield. Right, he gets away from Cleveland, he washes off all of that Cleveland type funk, and now look at him in Tampa Bay. And so, he definitely is starting to live up to being that first round selection. Shedeur, look at what Shedeur has had to go through. Not necessarily the battle between him and Dylan Gabriel. Not that. It's just how he has been treated by Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns organization. I want you guys to pay close attention to some things as well, right? When you listen to the narrative about Shedeur, we heard in the media, right? Let's go pre-draft. We heard pre-draft where they were talking about Shedeur and Cam Ward kind of battling for, that first round pick, maybe the 1-1, 1-2, just depending how things were going to fall. And so then we saw the Titans go ahead and take Cam Ward, which me personally, I had questions going into it, but I'm not the talent evaluator. I'm not the talent scout, just what these eyes can see. But definitely saw Shedeur as a first-round talent, at least from what we were able to see him do at Colorado and Jackson State to some degree. Plus the pedigree, plus all of the influences that he has had, the positive influences that he has had just growing up, being just around talented people. Being coached by PED 12. I don't know how good that is, but being coached by PED 12. And we saw him, right? And so people tried to discredit it, saying that, well, you're throwing to a future Heisman Trophy winner. Sure, Travis Hunter was great. He also threw to some other guys that were out there. A lot of them are in the league, not making big names for themselves, but, they were doing some work when they were in Colorado. And so we saw that. And then we saw what happened on draft night. And you start to watch the name just fall and fall, and you start adding up, and things just don't seem to correlate, right? You have the New Orleans Saints on the clock. They pass. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock. They pass. Like, why? Right? Well, all right, so get down to the Giants. They pass. Then the Giants come back in and they go get Jackson Dart. I have no issue with that, right? That was their guy, and that's where they had him slotted. No problem with that. But then he comes out of the first round. Now, again, we talk and we debate this whole first round thing, but the big thing for quarterbacks more than any other player is that fifth-year option, right? That fifth-year option allows you to still stay cap friendly while having the true signal caller that most teams don't want to pay that $50-60 million to, right? So why are you going to lose out on that? But then, and we know how everything played out. He ends up going to Cleveland. Cleveland had drafted Gabriel with their third-round pick. They end up getting Shador at 5. I have my own theory, my own thoughts, right? I do think that there was some level of collusion and conspiracy. I have a white Bills hat, not a tinfoil hat, but I do wear a tinfoil hat. And as we started to see what was happening in Cleveland, again, it didn't make sense, right? Here's Cleveland. They get Kenny Pickett. They go get Joe Flacco. You're like, okay. Now they have Gabriel, and then they get Shador. And so we all knew something was going to have to happen. Pickett was the first to go. You start sliding up and slotting up in the depth chart. So now it's Flacco, it's Gabriel, supposed to be Shador, right? Then they get Snoop Huntley. And then they get rid of Flacco. So now they've elevated and promoted a rookie quarterback to take the first team reps and the snaps. Here's Shador battling with Huntley, because midway through the season when Gabriel was a starter, there was a time when Shador was the emergency quarterback. Maybe you wanted the veteran presence. I don't know. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. But then Shador was re-elevated back to the number 2. And something was going to happen, because we're watching Gabriel on the field, and Stevie D has talked about it. He watched some of the games. We've all seen the games. Gabriel's made some passes. Yes, give the kid some credit. But the vast majority of his passes are high, are low, are wide, right? Leaving receivers out, hanging them out to dry. And the fans were calling for it. The media was calling for it. And more importantly, teammates were calling for it. Now, the good thing I will say about the teammates, they didn't say it directly, right? They didn't say Dylan's got to go. We didn't hear that. But what we did hear is that they were alluding to the fact that the defense was keeping them in games. The defense was putting them in a position to win. And unfortunately, they have this young signal caller that is just not doing it. And these are the guys that see it more than anybody else. They see it more than us. They see it more than the media, right? They see it more than any of the fans that go to Cleveland, go to the Browns games. They see it. They know what's happening in practice. And that's why I want to go back to the first statement where I was talking about Shador. If you watch and listen to the players, the camaraderie between Shador and the other Cleveland Brown players is one of a guy who's been there and one of a guy who has been accepted. These guys, they like him, whether it be the personality, whether it be his play in practice and what they think they see and what they believe he can bring. And then they look across the side, they see this other guy, and they struggle. And then they go back to this other guy who's, just engaging and high-fiving and whatever else is going on there in Cleveland. And you can just tell. And when Myles Garrett, who is by far the team leader, gets up to the microphone to talk to the press, to talk to all of us, and we hear the positive things that he says about Shador, that pauses because we were still waiting for the positive things that he had to say about Dillon Gabriel. So again, he speaks highly of Shedeur. He's not saying anything negative about Dillon, but he's not saying anything about Dillon. He's not directing his comments at Kevin Stefanski, but he's alluding to some things to Kevin Stefanski. Even the Browns coaching staff has made comments, again, not direct shots, but has made comments about Shedeur. And again, not the negative. They're not feeding into the narrative that the press wants to run with to grab that one soundbite that says, so-and-so says Dillon Gabriel is garbage. They're not going to give you that. But what they are giving you is Shedeur, great guy, does well, good in the community. Again, the leadership that he's bringing, the leadership he brings on the sideline, going up to his players, high-fiving them, congratulating them, right, in the mix with the players, stretching, laughing, joking around. Even in the community, we heard what he did with the school early on. There's the viral video of him giving away a car to a local resident there in the Cleveland area. These are the things that get the media, get the attention, shows the leadership. We don't see that from Dillon Gabriel. So there's definitely a difference between the two off the field as well as on the field. But yet Kevin Stefanski has dug in his heels. And really digging in his heels, he was like, Shedeur is not my quarterback. But the noise was getting loud. You look at where we are, week 11, the noise is getting loud. It's deafening because Gabriel is not performing. The defense is overperforming, and the Browns are losing. And so, funny enough, Stevie D and I said, when we had a conversation, I said, Stevie D, something's going to have to happen. But think about it. The last thing Stefanski wants to do is to bench Dillon Gabriel for poor play. Whether or not they have the same agent, I can't speak to that, right? But poor play would absolutely ruin this kid, who's bad enough, but it would absolutely ruin this kid. He didn't get hurt where we could see him in crutches or a shoulder injury. Plus, those are doctor's reports that are going to follow you year after year. You don't want that. So when Stevie D and I were talking before this Sunday's game, the easiest out for Stefanski is for Gabriel to all of a sudden have a concussion. And lo and behold, what happens? At halftime, where he's still struggling, he has a concussion. And so now it brings Shedeur in. What does the concussion do? Think about this. He goes into protocol, whether it be a week or 2 weeks, he comes out of protocol. Stefanski's betting that during that week and a half or that game and a half, that Shedeur is not going to show enough on the field, and that it'll be easy for him to bring back Dillon Gabriel without having to take any type of shots from anybody saying, why didn't you put in Shedeur to start with? Doesn't have to worry about that. And thus, when they have practice, Shedeur hasn't practiced with the ones, right? Think about it. Again, pecking order in preseason, he was third or fourth on the depth chart. He's throwing to guys who are now at Publix, or pushing carts, or selling insurance, or selling speakers at Best Buy. That's who he was throwing to. All the while, Gabriel was working with the ones, the twos, and the threes. So when Shedeur comes in, does he have that connection with Njoku? No. Does he have that connection with Judy? No. Right? Does he have that connection with the center? No. None of this happened. And here he comes, right? Not on the same page, but trying to get things done. But they're not really controlling the line shifts, being able to pick up the blitz, being able to call out. So now you got the line, they show the one picture. I think we've all seen it now, where you have the line protecting everybody to the right and the blitz coming right up the middle, and they parted like the Red Sea. That's on Stefanski. Yeah, I will definitely say Shador needs to be able to pick that up, but that's on Stefanski. You're putting a kid in who's not prepared, rookie, not prepared for the line calls, and there he is. That's horrible. And throughout we saw, and Stefanski kind of got what he wanted, didn't he? Only four completions, had the interception. It would have been great if he would have had the touchdown, because then Stefanski would have had to answer to that, right? But that's how we set him up for failure, on Stefanski. So now we have a full week. I don't know if a full week is really going to do it for Shador to give him what he's really looking for, and to give him that opportunity that is an equal opportunity with Gabriel. I don't think he's going to get that. But I do think a couple things. Remember what we talked about in the beginning. And really it goes down to the players. The players like him. And if the players like you, they are going to work and bust their tail for you. If they believe in you, if they believe that you give them a better shot, they are going to work as hard as they can for you. It's up to Shador now as well to try to cram all of this in 1 week. He's cramming the whole playbook, which he should know, but he's planning getting to know the receivers, whether it's working late, with the receivers and throwing routes and getting the hand signals and the timing and getting all of that. And we know it's not going to be perfect. Hell, it's not perfect in week 17 for most quarterbacks, right? There, you hear, oh, they just weren't on the same page. So that's bound to happen. He needs to get in sync with his offensive line. But I'll tell you what, just a little bit will be so much more than what Cleveland was getting from Dillon Gabriel. And if there's anything, you make that decision as hard as possible. We all know the story about Wally Pipp. We all know the story about Wally Pipp. This should be a Wally Pipp for Shador. Or actually, in this case, for Dillon Gabriel. That's what this should be. Now, with all that said, and we look around the league, and it's still really hard to determine. Great point. Hey, James, how are you? And James puts, 1 week is not enough, but you're playing the Raiders. This is true. The numbers that CD and Pickens put up, even after being benched for, what was it, a series or a quarter, was ridiculous. So the good thing for Shador is that they are playing the Raiders. But here's another thing I was thinking about. I don't know who selected or why Cleveland selected Shador. I don't know that. Personally, I think that after the 5th round, that whatever was said before, they were like, okay, you guys can now draft him, right? A whole nother podcast that we'll have to talk about this, at another time. But I think that was said. But don't you think the perfect landing spot for Shador, if Cleveland wanted to trade him, and I know this team would be ready to make the trade, the Atlanta Falcons. Penix suffered another knee injury. This is now the 3rd on the same knee. There are already questions with regards to his durability, his longevity in the league. They're not fans of Kirk Cousins. But how easy is it to bring in Shador? You bring in Shador to the city of which his father, what they say, he built the Georgia Dome. That was his claim. He built the Georgia Dome. Now he comes into a situation where his salary and his contract, because he only signed a 3-year deal at a 5th-round pick, so there's no money. There's no money whatsoever that they have to worry about. He can come into a situation and he can grow. Again, I wish all the best for Michael Penix. I like him. Matter of fact, he's a local guy to where I live now. I like him. But at some point, the injuries just ultimately ruin maybe what's in the mind. The mind believes the body can do this, but the body's saying, no, can't do it anymore. And that may be where Penix is at. So then you bring in Shador. He has legitimate weapons. I'm not going to say he has a legitimate defense. And they need to get a new coach, obviously, because Raheem is not it. But put him in the situation where he's throwing to Drake London, Kyle Pitts. He's got Bijan in the backfield, Algiers in the backfield. He's got weapons. And you put him with the right offensive coordinator, to the right head coach, everybody that's believing and buying into that process, you have a franchise quarterback. Because they will work around him to help build him and grow him. And plus, at that salary, you're paying nothing. Just think about that one. So we will see. I think we all, especially since the Bills are on Thursday night, I am going to be glued to watching the Cleveland Raiders game. I think that one is – that should be the nationally televised game because, again, everybody's talking about it. So, all right. As we move on from Shador, just a few things that we like to do. We like to go around the league. So, Aaron Rodgers and the hurt wrist, what does that do to the AFC North? Well, that's a good question because when you look at the AFC North, right now it's a mess. Right, you have the Ravens who are trying to come back, but you have Lamar who is, dealing with a bum ankle now. So they're sitting at 5-5, and really questions what's going to happen there. Burrow's trying to come back early, and then obviously what's going on with Cleveland. So it's a mess there. It's almost good to a point for the Steelers to just go ahead and let Rodgers sit. Old man, body doesn't heal and recover. Trust me, I know this. The body doesn't recover like it used to when you were younger. Probably would be a good move and then kind of have him ready for the stretch run. Another game was the Eagles-Lions game. Only talking about this because there's two things. The Eagles aren't right. The tush push needs to be banned, and now all eyes are on the tush push and the penalties and everything else that goes on with this. You got guys getting called for false starts now, finally, but they just don't seem right. And you can go buy all the talent in the world, Howie, which is what you've done. Your defense is just insane. But on the offensive side of the ball, I'm not sure if it's Hurts. Not sure if it's your receiving duo. But something's not right. And I look at Saquon and I'm like, here's another team, a la the Falcons with Bijan, that is not utilizing their running back to his fullest potential. Now, they may feel as though they can just flip the switch. And once they flip the switch, everything is they're off and running. But they just didn't look right. They really didn't. And then watching this game, what's with the glove, Jared Goff? I'm not a Jared Goff fan. Stevie D has never been a Jared Goff fan. If he were here on this one, he'd chime in right away. Right? He does not like Jared Goff. And just playing with the gloves, I go back to the quarterback being a leader, right? We were talking about the different things that Shador did with the teammates when he wasn't playing. You're the leader and you come out with gloves? What, is too cold for you? Suck it up. Get out there and play. You don't need gloves. That's why you have your hand warmer in the front. If you need to stick your hands in there and come out and let's go. Let's throw. Um, so, there's the take on the Eagles-Lions game. I do want to go to the Broncos-Chiefs. So this game was interesting. Because we remember last year's game, and especially as Bills fans are hoping for that last or to get another loss for the Chiefs, and just seemed every which way they would get a victory. I mean, so many last second victories, with the Raiders snapping it off the quarterback when he's not ready. And then, of course, there was the Broncos game. What happens in the Broncos game? The block kick, right? They just did an Olay on the offensive line, and the whole right side of the Chiefs' defensive line or block kick line, they just came flying right through, and they blocked this kick. You couldn't make this up. You couldn't make it up. But it's not happening this year for the Chiefs. That is not happening. So they're back in these close games, these one-score games, but they're not getting that lucky type advantage that they were able to just feast on last year. They're not getting it. They're not getting the calls from the officials like they were. Finally, Jawan Taylor's being called for a false start. Right? Finally, teams are recognizing when Jawan Taylor is actually on the line of scrimmage, it's a run, and when he's set up 1.5 yards behind the guard, that it's a pass. And not only is he 1.5 yards behind, but then he takes off a full second before the snap of the ball. All these things are being called out. Not to mention you're older. Chris Jones, we see him. He's not the same. So the Chiefs, in as much as we want to anoint them, let me take that back. In as much as they want to anoint them, as trying to do what the Bills did, which they won't. But it looks like it's getting close to being over, right? You're sitting at 5-5. Your division is growing and getting tougher to an extent. To an extent, your division's getting tougher, and you're just not able to pull out those games like you used to. So we will see what happens there. But on the flip side, when we talk about the Broncos, I know we use this when we talk about draft picks and when we talk about Hall of Fame, especially with the Hall of Fame. I'm quick to tell Stevie D, I got to use the smell test. Either it smells good or it doesn't. It's one or the other. And oftentimes, if it doesn't smell right, you could try to make an argument, but if you have to make the argument, then maybe it does not smell right. Maybe it is not right. And I'm looking at the 9-2 Broncos, and I just don't see it. I don't see it yet. Bo Nix hasn't really proven himself, in my opinion. I think they are being led by one of the league's best coaches, who I absolutely was pushing for in a coaching change in Buffalo to move away from McDermott and go with Sean Payton. I think from an offensive standpoint, he's on top of it. And I think he knows his limitations because he's an offensive guy. So he goes and he finds the best guy he can on the defensive side of the ball, and he has them run the defense, and he handles the offense, similar to an Andy Reid. Right? These are guys that know they stay in their lane, but they're offensive minded and they're getting results. Obviously, Andy's not getting results this year, right? But he has. Track record has shown. And we're seeing that with Sean Payton. But I still look at 9-2. Are you the best? Are you truly the number one seed? I don't see it. And with them being the number one seed, they are definitely, when it comes down to the playoff teams, when it comes to that second season, they are definitely a team that can be had, for sure. Speaking about teams in that division, the Chargers, you don't know what you're going to get, right? The Chargers we're going to call the Chargers Forrest Gump, right? Because what did Forrest say? Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, I look at this team and they have so much potential, but they never live up to the potential. And it doesn't matter. Is it Rivers? Doesn't matter if it's Herbert. Doesn't matter if it's Allen and Mike Williams, or now kind of Allen as well still there. And Johnson, it just doesn't matter. They don't live up to the hype. And where we look at where they are now, I just sometimes you get a good game out of them, and then sometimes they just fall apart. So they're not one that we can trust. The only good thing is that they're ahead of the Chiefs. Just keep that in mind. So they're ahead. They can keep doing what Harbaugh does over there, and just kind of live that out. The last team that I want to talk about before we get into the real discussion, what everybody's here for, is the Chicago Bears. I don't think anybody expected that one. It is the Chicago Bears. 7-3 Chicago Bears. Now, in fairness, and I'm not going to say that we were the only ones, because I did hear from others as well. We had predicted that the Bears were going to make the playoffs this year. Thought they would. Thought Ben Johnson coming in was the perfect fit for Caleb Williams. We thought and looked at the weapons they have on offense, and they certainly do have a lot of weapons on offense, and they can do a lot of different things. So we're good there. The record of 7-3 in leading the NFC North, that was a little shocking, or is a little shocking. I didn't think much of the Lions because they lost Aaron Glenn, they lost Ben Johnson, and not only did they lose those two, they lost everybody around them. Okay, so all the other assistants that were there, right? Some stayed, but a lot of them left to go to Chicago or go to the Jets, right? So you had a lot of guys leave. When I looked at the Vikings, I thought that we'd see a lot more out of the Vikings. And right now they feel like a team in disarray. Not to mention, it truly is J.J. McCarthy. Still, we have to call him a rookie quarterback. And then we look at the Packers, and can't answer that one. Have nothing for you on the Packers. The Packers are a letdown. They are a huge letdown as to where they are and where they should be. You have a top 10 quarterback. No, you don't have number one, quote unquote, wide receivers, but you have a stable of receivers that Watson and Dobbs, you got guys that can catch the ball. You have a legitimate running back. You have a solid offensive line. You went and traded for Micah Parsons. Not understanding where things are going wrong here, except for a head coach. And maybe that's it. Maybe the Packers are experiencing the same fate as our Buffalo Bills, except for we have a better record. Maybe that's it. But when I go back to the Bears, just want to be careful that we're not looking at fool's gold right now, right? Something that's all nice and shiny. But when you actually look at the Bears, you come back and you say, who are they? Because when you look at the Bears, you look at their schedule and what they've done so far. Yes, they're 7-3. They're leading the NFC North. They have losses to two division foes in the Vikings and the Lions, who we just talked about. But they beat the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Commanders. Not feeling like a gauntlet there. The Saints, the Bengals, the Giants, and the Vikings. That's not Murderer's Row. That's not the schedule where you're like, man, they have stacks of quality wins there. That doesn't look like it. On the flip side, to finish the season, the Steelers, we talked about Rodgers, but we'll see, but still legitimate defense. The Steelers, the Eagles, the Packers, they have the Packers twice, the Browns, and the 49ers. I can easily see 4 losses there, which would then turn this dream season that all of the Browns fans are talking about into a 10-7 where they'll be pushing for the wild card, which that's what you heard first from OWSports, that the Bears were going to get the wild card. So don't get too comfortable there. But then again, it all depends on what the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings. I don't think much of the Vikings, but the Packers and the Lions, what are they going to do? Because if they continue on that same path of mediocrity, well, then the Bears by default, in which maybe we'll have to call the NFC North the same as the AFC South, by default, the Bears will win the division. So we'll see. We will see. Take a quick timeout. Normally Stevie D's here and I could take a sip. So, and before we get into the Bills, just looking at some of the comments, and appreciate you guys jumping on board and putting some comments up here. So we'll take a look to see what we have here from Rob and from James. Rob, Packers are struggling with offensive play calling and fan base is finally calling. You are 100% correct. Matter of fact, now I am a big sports radio guy, right? Love sports radio. And dare I say, going back to when I was a kid, right? Love sports radio. And there's a guy that has a national show but comes out of the Milwaukee area. Big time fan for the Packers. And as I listened to him, absolutely going off on the coaching staff, just lambasting them, basically talking about what the play calls are, the use of Jordan Love, etc. Right? So it's just interesting. It's funny when we compare our experience as Bills fans, or even Stevie D's experience as a Jet fan. When we compare that to, we think it's just us, but it's not just us. Other teams are facing those same experiences and feelings and situations, etc. Just for the mere fact that, it's just you kind of scratch your head. You're like, how did these people, these roles, as a head coach or a play caller, offensive coordinator, or a quarterback's coach, this is what you're doing, right? This is what you're calling. So it's a very good point. And you're right, Rob, the non-utilization of Jacobs. Absolutely. Let's see. James had, when we were talking about the Eagles and the tush push, the tush push should be banned. If the defense is not allowed to push players up through the line, scrimmage and offense, that's a whole nother conversation, James. And you may have opened it up, because you're absolutely right. I don't know when all of a sudden it became legal to play rugby with American football. I don't know when. I do remember a time where there was none of the pushing and the pulling. That this didn't happen. There was a time when forward momentum had been stopped. Right? So you tried to push the pile, but then they would say, no, that's it. Right? And they wouldn't allow this push for 2, 3, 10, 15 yards. That just wouldn't happen. And I guess they turned a blind eye to an offensive lineman pulling a running back or pulling a receiver forward. That was done. But when we talk about the tush push, more than anything, it's about player safety. They scream, they want to say, pound their chest, we're all about player safety. Once again, we have a Thursday night game. We'll talk about player safety for that. But they talk about player safety. Let's start with the tush push. In the tush push, you have the offensive line that wants to get as low as possible and submerge themselves underneath the defensive line. So you got a guy like this that ducks his head down like that, exposing the entire back of his neck, spine area. Do you think that there's a higher than not probability that something could happen? Thank goodness nothing has happened, but you've just increased the chances that something could happen. That's player safety? Okay. You have the other players that are trying to do the exact same thing. And now you have mass of humanity that is doing the same thing. And then over the top, you have a running back or a tight end or another lineman pushing another human being on top of these guys with their necks already down. And we're supposed to say, oh, yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And that's for player safety. You have, as you talked about, James, you talked about the pushing of an individual. When you're in that type of mass and you start pushing an individual, you're increasing, again, the likelihood, and we haven't seen anything major, but of severe injury. And now I'm talking about to the legs. Because on the defensive side of the ball, you have somebody that's trying to push back, but all of a sudden you have this mass pushing the opposite direction. And all it takes is just to be playing on some crappy turf, which we see all the time, and for that foot to stick, or that spike or that cleat to stick inside that grass while it's being pushed back, and then there goes somebody's knee. That's not player safety. These are the decisions that the league is making that ultimately will be the downfall of the game and the sport that we love so much. It's very simple. Why did you change this, and why are you allowing this? They want to talk about the other injuries, and they're saying because they're bigger and faster athletes, and that's why these things are happening. But yet we care about player safety, and we're going to allow something where the percentage, the likelihood has gone up. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Hey, Craig, welcome. Yes, you do have a big game tomorrow. I can't take the jacket off right now, but this is for you, Craig. JETS. That's for you. Only time you'll hear me say that, well, actually, I take that back. I was saying it last week as the Jets were playing the Patriots. Matter of fact, let's go into that. I'm not going to give you the same level of recap and in-depth analysis that my man Stevie D would give you. Maybe it's a good thing for Stevie D because I'm watching this game, and it's funny. As I'm watching the game, Rob, who has the Cover 2 podcast, I was watching his podcast. Guys were having a great debate, talking, all things about the Bills. Great podcast. Rob, keep up the good work there. But I told Rob, so we may have to blame this on Rob. Be careful. Because as their podcast was going on, I saw a New York Jets team that I hadn't seen since week 1 for the first series. That was the scripted series. Justin Fields looked good. The offensive line looked good. They were running the ball. Fields was running the ball. Good passes, quality passes, right? Nothing was too deep and nothing was anything that was high risk, but good passes, and they went right down the field. Touchdown. It's like, oh, look at this. And so I told Craig, hey, you guys cannot change. We cannot change what we're doing. I'm glued to your podcast. Or I'm sorry, I told Rob. Sorry, Craig. I told Rob, you guys can't change what you're doing. I'm glued to your podcast. You guys got to stay on. Just keep it going. This is where Rob and his guys from his podcast, JT, they started to wrap things up. And I'm like, what are you doing? You can't wrap it up. What's Rob saying? You can't throw us under the bus. But Rob, I'm telling you guys, don't wrap it up. And they're trying to get off, and no. And now I'm watching Drake May just go down the field. And next thing you know, it's 7-7. And then after it's 7-7, everybody talks about the scripting. That's kind of where the Jets didn't have anything after that first script. Because after that, then it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And Rob, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. We're going to blame Stevie D and Aaron Glenn. That's whose fault we're going to put that on. Because at the end of the day, they did not even really try to establish a good run game with their running backs. You could see that they were missing Garrett Wilson. You could see the loss of Williams on the defensive line. You could see the loss of Gardner at cornerback. I mean, Drake May was able to find receivers all over, threw for 281 yards. It just went down. It just went down. Yes, you will wrap up even sooner tomorrow. and there you go. As a little plug, catch the best pregame. Check out Cover 2 podcast. You know that's right. So it all goes by the wayside, and unfortunately, the help that we Bills fans were looking for, we didn't get it from the team from New Jersey. And since DVD is here, I can officially say from the team from New Jersey, they didn't give us the help we needed. Now they take on the Ravens. And Craig, you're up. And I really wish Stevie D was here because that would be, a good clash there. But one of the key things, a couple of key things, and Craig, you may know if you're still there with us. So they say Lamar didn't practice, and so ankle injury, that means he's going to have limited mobility. I think the key to success for the Jets, the obvious thing, must contain Henry. I think the fear of Lamar breaking out of the pocket and running has been diminished by the ankle injury. Don't get down too far. Now Craig says he will play. So if he is playing, that's good, but it'll still be limited as far as his mobility, not his playing time. And just give Breece Hall the ball. Let's establish some continuity with the run game. The big thing, though, is Justin Fields has been benched. So what will be interesting, Craig, we can't listen to what you guys say and do in practice. We do know that. The league has already fined you once, and I'm sure they could keep fining you for what you guys like to put out. But Justin Fields was benched. This is something that the owner had requested. Then Tyrod got hurt, and then Fields came out and had a good game. But ultimately, they're going with Tyrod. It's interesting because this is kind of the homecoming for this is the homecoming for Tyrod. So going back to play against the Ravens, it definitely gives the Jets a little bit more of a chance. But when you're going back and forth between quarterbacks like that, I'm not sure. Just like we talked about with Shador, the continuity. Not sure if that's there. I do believe that Tyrod has practiced with the ones more than what Shador did with the ones in Cleveland. So maybe that's a benefit. We'll see. Unfortunately for Justin Fields, when something like this happens, you probably have played your last down, your last game as a New York Jet. And the interesting thing is, and I could say this since Stevie D isn't here, all of a sudden the rumor mill starts swirling. And one of the rumors, I pray for him, man. That's my guy. We are brothers. Love him like a brother. We are like that. Please, I do not wish this on him. One of the rumors out there is that Kyler Murray, a.k.a. Mighty Mouse, could be in play for the Jets. I swear I hope that is clickbait. Now, as a Bills fan, keep doing that. Keep making those decisions. But for my man Stevie D, please do not do that. Do not go down that path. So we'll see. Good luck. Hopefully both teams come out healthy. Craig, you definitely need this. And the Jets are sitting in the spoiler role. Even though the funny thing, if you look across our little ticker that's going across, it's showing the playoff standings, and then it says who's in the hunt. Just make note that the last team in the hunt for the AFC are the New York Jets. So there's a chance. There's a chance. And that's all you need. You say there's a chance, there's a chance. All right. Let's talk about our Bills. There's a lot to talk about here. When you talk about a quality win, well, we're talking about a quality win. We're talking about a quality win by team name. But I want to be realistic. I'm not Debbie Downer here. I'm happy that they won. I'm happy that we saw good performances by some players that we haven't talked about in the past. But keep in mind, we went against a Buccaneers team that was without Mike Evans, who is a future Hall of Famer, and Chris Godwin, who is a top-level, top-tier wide receiver. Not a Hall of Famer, but he's top-tier. So we were going against them without those guys. They also didn't have Bucky Irving, who is their number one back. So keep in mind, right? Imagine a game. Oh, boy, we don't have top receivers, do we? Okay, so a game without Cook, Kincaid, and Shakir, maybe? Right, that wouldn't look good for us. That would not look good. But you have to give credit to those of the Buccaneers who did make the trip. And they had an outstanding game from their perspective, right? This game was truly competitive. They talked about all the different lead changes that happened in that game. That statement, let me say that one again. They talked about all the different lead changes. Now, from an offensive side, I don't have a problem with that. None of us should have a problem with that. We know what we can do on offense. But if there's a lead change and your offense takes the lead and then the other team takes the lead back, that means your defense is giving it up. Your defense isn't stopping anybody. That's concerning against a team that is missing their top two wide receivers and their number one running back. That's concerning. Again, I'm happy we got the win. But sometimes don't just look at what the final score says, or don't just look at, hey, we got to win. No, there's more to it. It should be sounding the alarm. It should be sounding the alarm. Also in this game, you had Cook that we really didn't get what we thought we were out of the running game. 16 for 48. That's not the James Cook we know, right? Averaging 3 yards a carry. We did see the Bills utilize him in the pass game, right? 3 for 66 and a touchdown. So that's always good. We also saw what would be the Terrell Shavers show. Funny enough, one of the best catches all year happened in the preseason against the Bucs, where Shavers made the one-handed grab on the sideline, insane catch, turns around and makes another insane catch for the touchdown in this game in the regular season. But again, I'm not Debbie Downer. If I look at the defense, what did I see? I saw Bishop with another interception. I saw Bishop actually playing a solid game again. Jordan Poyer, 15 total tackles, good and bad. Why is my safety making 15 tackles? Right? The good is that my safety made 15 tackles. The bad is, why is my safety making 15 tackles? Right? You have to weigh that out. I will tell you though, There is no coincidence that the Bishop improved play started when Rapp was out and Poyer is in. A, you have a better playing partner, and B, you have a guy that can coach you and help develop you real time while you're on the field. And we're seeing the fruits of that in the way that Bishop has been playing. Hands down. It was a quiet day for Bosa. Didn't get much there. Obviously, the rushing defense is struggling, and something has to be done. And I equate the struggles with our run defense. It's not as much our defensive line. And that's where I hear people talking about. It's not the defensive line. The struggles with our rush defense is the linebacking core that we have and the defensive scheme that we have aligned with the personnel. And this is a tough one to talk about. I keep saying this week after week. This is tough. Because Matt Milano is probably one of the top 3 of my favorites on this team. He is my favorite for his playmaking, or what used to be his playmaking skills, his courage and heart to get back, and his football IQ. Hands down. That is a guy, I love watching that guy out there, and I love watching him play. But then something happens. Just like talking about Michael Penix, the same holds true for Matt Milano. You could just insert name here. Your body can only take so many injuries, so many setbacks. And this guy has run the gauntlet. I mean, they might as well just put his body up on a chart in med school and say, let's talk about this injury and that injury and this injury. The whole body. I mean, we saw what happened when we went to England and played Jacksonville, and just how he was all bent backwards and sideways and everything else like that, and trying to come back, and you have a torn pec, torn bicep. I mean, there's only so much that you can expect. And even with the football IQ can tell you where you need to be. Even with the courage, that means you're going to stick your head in there and you're going to do it. Even though you have playmaking abilities, if your body doesn't put you in the position when you need to be in that position, you're going to be a second or a step late. And honestly, in Milano's case, it's 2 steps late. It's 2 seconds late. And that hurts. That's the part that hurts, because that's a guy that deserves anything that when it comes to accolades and achievements, and, hopefully those things will happen while he's still on the roster, but that's the guy that deserves it. That's the guy, you talk about blood, sweat, and tears, that's a guy that has given everything for this team. Even to restructure his contract, knowing that the end was near. He deserves it. Yeah, oftentimes I don't say people deserve it, I say you earn it. But he has earned it over the past years here with the Bills. But he's not the same. Those big runs, part of them are in him. Terrell Bernard, when I watch him, I'm watching the regression of a guy from a few years back. He was all over the place. And now he seems to be off. Could it be because of injury? Could it be that he's off because Milano is off? And so he's trying to compensate. But he's off. Is he fighting nagging injuries? I know he had one the week prior and he was fighting that. But it's more than just 1 week. So is there something that's lingering that's been going on that's causing him to regress? I don't know. But the linebacking core that we have, as long as they are staying in place, which I don't think there's much you can do about it now at this point, we are going to be very much susceptible to watching third-string running backs, like what we saw against Tampa, gash us for big gains. And that's something with that we're going to have to really start to pay close attention to, because when you look at our schedule that we have coming up, we are going to face, let's see, what we got: the Eagles, we got the Browns. Don't sleep on the Browns in the running game from the Browns. The Patriots, we already saw what they could do. The Steelers, they could run the ball down our throat. I mean, these are teams that could really impact what we would normally consider on paper a winnable game. But now, because our rush defense is so poor, that all of a sudden now these games come into play. Just some things to think about there. And thanks, Rob. Yes, he is dealing with a recurring ankle issue. So, you can see he's not the same, and something is going wrong there. One other kudo that I do want to give, talking about the Bills and the Bucs game, that was special teams. When was the last time that we actually kind of praised somebody on the special teams? We had a return game. Now, McCole Hardman, I guess you really are injured. It's just interesting how you got injured after a fumble. But he opens up with like almost a 60-yard return, right? That seemed to motivate Ray Davis. Ray Davis is going crazy out there. Between the two of them, they were averaging 43.8 yards. And then there was the other guy that we got who's supposed to be the special utility knife. Some guy named Curtis Samuel. Yeah, he brought the average down, right? So you can't do anything on offense. You go on special teams, and you bring that 43.8 average down to 39. May not sound like a lot, but at some point, just cut ties. I mean, that is probably one of the worst free agent signings. One of the worst. And then you had the Alec Anderson penalty on the blocked field goal. I appreciate that. I'll just say that. I appreciate that. Okay. Now we have the Texans. Let's first start. It's a short week. I hate Thursday night games. I hate short week Thursday night games. That's all I got to say. It's not about player safety, and it really doesn't give the players the proper time to heal, to give the coaches the time to put in the game plan. You have to hope upon hope that you're playing against, a bottom feeder the week before so that you can put in the base game plan. That's going to win, and then prepare for your next game. On top of that, it's on the road, so now we got to travel. It's not like it's at home. All the more reasons why I hate the Thursday night game. So what happens on Monday, Tuesday? Because Wednesday, you got to travel. So what happens? You have your therapy, your lifting, your body healing, all crammed into one day, right? Then you're going to do your walkthrough. Next thing you know, you're on a plane. Horrible. Speaking of that, let's just go over the injury report. So there's a few that did not participate and are definitely out for the game. Dalton Kincaid, Curtis Samuel, take note, and McCole Hardman. He's been ruled out. We had just about everybody was a full participant. The one that did not participate was Khalil Shakir, but that's because he was celebrating the birth of his new child. So, hey, congratulations, and there's a good reason why you weren't there, but he's still good for the game. And then, as I said, basically everybody else was a full participant. When we look on the other side of the other side of the field, the Houston Texans, Jamal Hill, Jalen Petrie, and C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud will not play, which means that we get another dose of Davis Mills, which should be interesting in of itself. When we look at the keys to the game here, I think that Rob mentioned some things up there about defensive rankings and where we stand. Let's just look on the defensive side of the ball and kind of let all this sink in, right? The Bills' offense will be going up against the number one defense in the NFL. The Texans are giving up 258 yards per game. The Bills on the other side are giving up 322. I wouldn't worry about the yards that the defense is giving up. That I wouldn't worry about. What I would be concerned about is the fact that we're going up against the number one defensive team, which means Joe Brady, you have to be smart. You have to call a good game. You did call a good game last game, but that has to continue. It can't be hot one, not hot the next. When we look at from a rushing yards allowed, well, it's the number 3 team, which means it's going to be tough for Cook going up against that Texans rush defense. They're ranked number 3. Going up against the Bills that are ranked 31st. 31st. That's second from the bottom. Okay. Now, on the passing side, the Bills are the number 2 pass defense, and the Texans are number 3. So it's very, very obvious. Number 2 ranked and number 3 ranked equals number 1 ranked defense in the league. Number 3 and number 31 equals the number 12. But this game really is going to be dictated, again, by Joe Brady. This game is going to be dictated by Josh Allen. I expect Joe Brady to have a good enough game plan in place to be able to begin to exploit that rush defense. Just because you're ranked number 3 in the league does not mean that James Cook cannot go off against the Texans. What it does mean is you need to be a little bit more creative. You cannot be predictable and run the ball on first down every single time. You cannot do that. What it does mean is that you're going to need to have players like Khalil Shakir, like Gabe Davis. Probably Keon Coleman will be back. You're going to need to have these players show up and show out. And since I mentioned the name, let's talk about Keon Coleman for a minute. So I'm a little disappointed in Keon Coleman because there are certain things that are hard to do in the league, and there are things that are just easy to do. Going to your job and showing up on time is easy. It's easy when it's important to you. It's easy when you're responsible. It's easy when you hold yourself accountable. Those are easy things to do. Running a route with headhunting DBs and linebackers out there and trying to make a catch in traffic is hard to do. Going up for a contested catch and coming down with your toes on the field of play is hard to do. Catching a fastball from Josh is hard. Showing up to a meeting, being prepared is easy. And this guy is getting the easy stuff wrong. We've heard some of the comments from Dawkins and some of the others, and Keon, he spoke to the media and he talked about it. But there's an issue here. There's an issue. This young man, and it's unfortunate to say, being a Seminole too, his head isn't on straight. And what's crazy is that you're a second-round pick. You're not a 1-1. You're not a Malik Neighbors or a Dunze. You're not those guys. You're not even a Xavier Worthy. These are guys taken ahead of you. You're not those guys. You're not a McConkey who's constantly putting up numbers. You're not those guys. You are struggling with your on-field performance to have a place on this team. There's rumors and, innuendos by the coaching staff and the GM last year, and then you hear it this year, and you're doing things like missing a team meeting, showing up late for meetings. I'll be honest with you. And as much as I like Keon Coleman, I think he's a funny guy. I think his personality is great. I think that's something that you'd want to have. But if you can't get the easy stuff right, we don't need you. We don't need you. You're more of a cancer and a detriment. We can see all the things that you can do, but you're just not willing to put in the work to do it. And maybe for him, it's a change of scenery. Maybe to realize that a team has given up on you. Right here, here's somebody that, and I don't want to speak for him, but for somebody that has had the benefit of a lot of things go his way in his young life, whether it be football or basketball. Remember, he was a D1 basketball player for Michigan State. We're not just talking about, some directional college, a legit Big Ten school. And then he transfers to Florida State and starts to shine at Florida State. We're talking about things he's been in good situations. But it may be the fact that the way that the college coaches and the high school coaches, maybe the demands that they have on him and they push him, that you don't get that same level once you become a professional. You're an adult, right? You're an adult. They expect you to push yourself. Teammates will encourage you, but they expect you to do it on your own. So at this point, I'm the Bills, me personally, and the Bills should not be in the mode of some type of reclamation project. They shouldn't be in the mode of having their second-round draft pick be taught on how to be an adult, to be a responsible adult, to be an adult who holds themselves accountable. Those should be the guys walking through the door. They already have that down. And the only thing that they should be taught is the playbook, the scheme, the relationship that they have with the other players. That's what they should be taught. So, again, I hate to say it. I wish you all the best. While you're here, I hope you do nothing but ball out. I hope you learn your lesson. But at this point, I really can say that ready to wash my hands. Let's move on. Let's find somebody that wants to be here and that wants to put in the work, put in the effort, and really helps push this team to the next level. So, yeah, that's what I have for you on Keon Coleman. It's been fun. It's kind of awkward to do the show solo. Miss my man Stevie D over on the side, but it was an all Buffalo show. I gave a little bit to the Jets. It was a little all Buffalo show, but much love to my man Stevie D in his return next week. Again, the podcast every Wednesday, 8 p.m., Facebook and YouTube. Catch snippets on Instagram. Please make sure you're giving us a like, give us a subscribe. Make sure you're joining the Facebook groups that we have out there. We have Jets Hangar and we have Mafia Den. Jump in there. We got great people, great individuals in both of the groups. And, of course, become a fan of the OWSports page. So plenty of ways to get to us. If you have anything that you want to share with us, you're more than welcome. Send an email to mailbag@owsports.net. We'll take your comments, your thoughts, your opinions, and we'll share it on the air. Again, to give my man Rob, give him a shout out, Cover 2 Podcast. If you are a Bills fan and you're looking for the best pregame show, well, this is the pregame show, but tomorrow night for Cover 2, that will be the pregame show, and then it will be on to Thursday night. So that's going to wrap this one up. Normally, I would say for my host or my co-host Stevie D, I'm Vince. I'll just say I'm Vince, and go Bills.